Hello, everyone. I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. I'm excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And today's guest is Helen Waters. She's Executive Vice President and COO at Meditech. Welcome, Helen.
Good morning, John. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, excited for our discussion. There's been a lot of changes at Meditech over the last 6 months to a year, a transition of leadership. Is this more business as usual, or do you think we'll expect some new directions with these different changes in leadership?
So great question. It's one of the most important ones I think we can answer, which is that we are in a new era in healthcare yet again, and certainly within our company. And with any new era, the eventuality of progression and evolution and change. And I think our customer base and the industry can continue to expect that from the transition to Michelle and I and our CFO pretty much driving the company forward with a very strong executive leadership team. But we are in the midst of taking all that's foundationally strong about Meditech, all of the practicality that it's brought to the industry, all of the vast impact that we've been able to have over these 53 years, and bring it to a new level. I think everyone that knows our company will always recognize our company for who we are, for the values that we stand for the desire to truly partner with the industry and with each and every customer to make sure that they're successful and that we advance digital healthcare in a very sustainable way and address the broader needs of our marketplace. So I think you'll see a lot of change as we continue to evolve forward and maintain relevancy in today's market for today's customer. But I also think people will see the familiarity of foundationally what has brought us here to this moment, which is strong ethics, values, integrity, and strong really passion and commitment and endeavoring to really continue to make a significant impact in healthcare IT.
Yeah. It strikes me that the leadership team at Meditech is mostly female. Like if I were to look across every health IT company out there, there's some startups I think that are starting to do that, but it's pretty striking. And certainly Judy leads Epic as well, which, you look across tech in general, it's pretty rare. What do you think made that happen? That all these wonderful women leaders are leading Meditech?
I think we would have to give a complete nod to all the brilliant men that were founders of this company that believe strongly in the capacity of finding the right person to do the right job with the right talent. And I think there was a level of progressiveness here that was truly remarkable. I started at Meditech in 1990 as a very young and impressionable person living a completely different life at the time. What we found over time was that our founder and chairman today, Neil Pappalardo, along with his senior leadership team, saw the strength of the female population in particular, saw the changes in lifestyle in terms of where they might head with their lives and their priorities over time, and created some really progressive programs that were all about part-time work, all about telecommuting, all about establishing a great benefit plan for the evolution of family life and different levels of partnership, progressive ideas that I think kept both men and women here, to be honest with you. But I think the nod to where we sit today and the fact that our CEO and president, as well as myself and our CFO and our chief corporate legal counsel and compliance officer are all female, along with other executive vice presidents and vice presidents and 8 female associate presidents. It's a well-balanced environment. And I have to give all the credit really to our founders and the fact that they saw the value in that and really made it clear that no matter where your life took you, if you were passionate about our company and what we did and truly desiring to have an impact, if you worked hard, you would be noticed. And if you chose to sort of take a bit of a step back for a period in time to care for loved ones, sick family members, or whatever your priorities were family-wise, that they would be here to support you in your career when you were ready. And that's something that really rang true and I think kept a lot of really strong people here. In addition to the fact that we connected with the company and the value structure of the company.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. And it makes sense in healthcare, right? I think healthcare, is a place where anyone can thrive, and in many ways, the compassion that's needed, rings true for everyone. So it's great that they created that culture for you to be able to do that. Props and kudos to them.
Mhm.
Yeah, not to shift gears too much, but let's talk about COVID. Like, and not necessarily COVID itself, but how has it changed Meditech's perspective? Do you think it's impacted, say, like the product releases and how you're approaching that, or how has that, forced Meditech to approach things differently?
Well, I think like the entire industry, be it on the vendor side or the provider healthcare organization side or the frontline clinician, everything changed during COVID. Many silver linings came from those clouds, I think, in terms of the pace with which technology was being sought and the pace with which we had to deliver it, pushing out solutions that were ready to go really for a period of time prior to COVID, but really accelerated given the needs of COVID. Certainly the development efforts for our company shifted quickly into providing additional and enhanced solutions. We had moved previously to an agile development process, and I think COVID put that on steroids. We had a virtual care solution, as I mentioned, ready to go. We really had to accelerate the rollout and the timelines, figure out how to support customers in a very compact timeline. I think for healthcare as a whole and digital healthcare, we proved a lot to ourselves that we could move quickly when we had to. And I think that's been a big silver lining on many fronts, because the pace of change in healthcare and digital healthcare in particular was moving, but not quite as fast. And when COVID came about and the need were obvious, healthcare and technology continued to move quickly. So we created solutions, obviously, for our Expanse customers, but we also had to go back and create it for the non-Expanse customers. We've been a true partner in the sense of some of our legacy platforms, and we wanted to be sure that they were as well prepared for what was happening. We made sure that customers got the latest updates that they needed to be capable of deploying virtual solutions. We created some new dashboards and some new capabilities around vaccination statuses on vaccination cards, on the surveillance boards to measure the instances of COVID positivity in an organization, to be able to put up quick expedited outpatient locations with our customers, to track patients that were coming through for services and testing outdoors and not into facilities. So we had to move really quickly. In addition to that, we had to continue to service customers on a daily basis. At times they were challenged in terms of taking people out of IT and putting them back in the front line, and particularly in terms of clinicians. We brought customers live, which was important, I think. There were some that weren't as heavily impacted depending on where they were in the geographic part of our country, and they wanted to keep moving. We did most of that remotely from a safety perspective for our staff. Also for the facilities we would be bringing live, we moved to virtual command centers. So I think it woke the industry in many respects. It increased the pace of technology adoption, and it showed us all what we're truly made of when we have to work together at a time and during a crisis.
Do you think the virtual go live is here to stay? Or is it going to go back to some sort of hybrid, or has it really opened up? Because I mean, before everyone's like, I need at the elbow, right? It was like, I need you here, and I need,
Yeah.
Did it open our eyes to that?
Oh, I think it opened our eyes to the fact that not everything had to be done in person. But I also think it showed the value of the opportunities that exist when we are together.
Okay.
Right. And so I think it will be a hybrid world, much like our workforce has realized that we function and live outside the walls of our desks and offices. I think healthcare realized that. I think we saw that in the go lives, but we've transitioned back to being there for our customers. We have probably in many instances adjusted the staffing model, just having learned what can be done, the art of what can be done. I think our customer base has come to that same realization. So I think some good things came out of the fact that efficiency can be achieved without physically having to be somewhere.
Yeah.
oftentimes going to be the moments when that's exactly where you should be and you have to be, and that's the call to action. Now, we saw that in the demonstration process. It would be unheard of and considered insulting if we didn't send a person to show every product on site when we were being evaluated. We had to transition to remote demos. We have found now that there's a lot of organizations that prefer them, that don't feel as put off if we say we can get 8 people there, but the 9th can't be there. So I think there was some good components that came out of COVID that taught us all we can live in a hybrid world.
Yeah, it's amazing how many places that hybrid hits. And, I had one health system I was working with that said, we don't want you to waste your money flying out here, right? I mean, almost a green type of, stop wasting resources. Like, the hybrid is better. At some point, sure, let's meet in person, but, in the initial, let's do it virtually.
Right. So. Yeah. No, I think it's taught us that we can be flexible and agile in the way we do business and the way we engage, and we're still going to be okay with that in a modified approach.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the hottest topics, like if I think of our CIO podcast and the CIOs I talk to, is really around burnout and workforce. Are those things that's kind of impacted your approach to how you're designing and developing your Meditech products, to help alleviate burnout and the workforce issues that many face?
Yes, certainly. I think the burnout of the healthcare worker in general, whether that's a frontline nurse, a physician, or many of the people that were supporting this very frenetic environment, was very obvious for us. And I think our journey with Expanse had begun some years before that. We realized the ability to be mobile would make end users far more satisfied. We track and study the importance of all the cognitive load that is on clinicians today, particularly physicians. We've been embracing the idea that we need to modify the traditional waterfall development approach and work with our physician community, our pharmacy community, our nursing community as the designers really of these solutions, instead of coding a solution and asking them how they like it. So we have been introducing applications that have been addressing that. I think COVID expedited and made more obvious where we could also accelerate. So we've released some applications in the last couple of years that I think have been helpful. Expanse now is a mobile application for physicians, allowing them to order and document across care settings and focusing their energy on the phone that's in their hand, whether they're in the facility, in their office, or they're at a soccer game. I think the same thing was added relative to a virtual assistant capability for doctors to be able to use their voice, which sometimes from preference is something they consider faster, to say, hey, Meditech, find me the last, chest x-ray done on this patient. Hey, Meditech, who's next on my schedule? So we've introduced some advanced capabilities with the virtual assistant to use voice. We've been moving our nursing product as well, the extension of Expanse, into the web-based UI, and therefore making that completely mobile on the devices that nurses can walk around with, be those iPhones or specific devices designed for nursing, but they're documenting, they're assessing, they're administering medications on their phone. So I think everything that we do is designed to think about that intended user and their intended use, and how we can relieve the frustration of where technology is hindering their ability to do their job, slowing them down, or impacting their ability to connect with the patient, take off their plate. I also think that the entire ambulatory system really was driven and designed to be sure that we could help with efficiency. So when you talk about scheduling, you talk about the ability for patients to create their own appointments, to review their own results. We put a lot of that mobile power into the consumer healthcare perspective too. So yeah, I think the workforce shortage has been challenging. I think from a clinical and a cognitive point of view, we need to do that in every application that we write. I think making it easier and faster to get to data and do your task is going to be critical. And I think wherever we can add efficiency factors, even to the operational areas around supply chain, with the efficiency of the OR and the surgical cases and the supplies demanded in those surgical cases, we'll be assisting healthcare with what's clearly a trend that's not going to turn around quickly, which is the workforce and the labor shortage that healthcare is dealing with. So yeah, I
Yeah,
would, yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I think it's a long-term challenge. It's going to be interesting to see it play out and how we can help healthcare organizations.
Yep.
As I look back at the last, say, decade of EHR and the world of EHR, which I've lived and breathed and slept, you have too, right?
Right, right.
If
No,
I
it's
look, yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. But as I look at it, the last decade has in many ways been driven by the regulations, right? We needed to chase meaningful use money, right? Like if you didn't have that, no one would buy you, right? And so the government regulations, the EHR certifications, eventually macro MIPS, right? I mean, that drove a lot of the product roadmap for most EHR companies. And, I mean, you highlighted some other things you've done certainly in that time as well. But what do you think comes next? Like, I feel like, okay, we're finally in a more solid regulatory space. Sure, yeah, TEFCA's coming and some other things, right? But what do you think is coming next as far as innovation and innovative solutions for customers? Because it feels to me like you're finally, and not you, but the industry in general is at a place where it's like, there's no major regulations coming to say, oh, that are going to like chomp up your roadmap for the next 5 years, like Meaningful Use did. What do you see coming, as far as, what are you looking at next to provide innovative solutions to your customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think you summed it up pretty well, that we've been consumed by the agenda that has been driven at us from a regulatory perspective. And that's been a delicate balance for the industry. It certainly was for Meditech to get out ahead of a new platform, to get an ambulatory system designed from the bottom up and be compliant as the government was throwing more and more at us with legacy platforms to address. But I think there are many things. Certainly the overall concept of advancing innovation is exciting for us. And by that, I mean, we're shifting our own company to be more of an EHR healthcare data platform and not just an EHR software system. And I think that is going to afford a tremendous amount of opportunity as we think about the interoperable world that's coming at us. I think you hinted at TEFCA and the EHI data and all that's still coming at us from a regulatory point of view. But I think for once, those regulatory requirements are converging with where the market should be going, right? So we're finally arriving at a good point of intersection where the vendor community, in combination with the new players that will enter this market, and there will be new innovators that come in, augment, and come around the traditional EHR players, it's converging with the regulatory expectations of the government that we continue to make and build interoperable records. From a Meditech point of view, I think we're highly excited about our genomic solution and the fact that we have developed a set of interoperability standards really ahead of what we think the market has done in terms of our working with reference labs. We're currently integrating with 7 and in search of several others. You may have heard that the Expanse genomic solution consumes information differently. There are many data points of mutational information that are stored discretely. And in that sense, discretely at the gene or the region of the mutation, an interest level for a clinician, building then a completely patient genetic profile that can be leveraged for clinical decision support for the next set of orders that will be placed or the next set of medications that will be administered. So we believe that the expansion of personalized medicine will continue to hit our industry. And I think that's exciting. The one thing that we talk about a lot at Meditech is we consume what we do, right? We care about the healthcare space. We've been in a long time, but we also know and love people that need it. And in that sense, whenever we can make a difference to enhance how the frontline physician, the nurse, the pharmacist is making a decision on what would be best for this patient, who's the most important person in your world or my world, then that's exciting stuff for us. So I think genomics is pretty critical to the future. I also think that the work that we're doing around relaunching Greenfield in the interoperability space is exciting for us. And I would say that our work and our very bold decision to work with Google in terms of the search and summarization aspects of what they're doing is quite interesting and exciting. That's a statement to the market that we believe that we have depth, experience, and sophistication that warrants deployment anywhere a healthcare system might seek deployment. But we also know that perhaps we won't be all things to all people. And if we can make strategic partnerships that allow us to leverage the experience and the assets of other trusted source strategic partnerships, then we're going to make a real difference in healthcare. And we think that that particular project will have a lot of impact in terms of the longitudinal healthcare record and the ability to continue to present efficiently, as we talked about earlier, information that might impact a clinician's decision and ultimately the outcome for a patient and a person who needs that decision to be right and needs it to be broad, it needs it to be quick. So there's lots of moving parts that I think are quite interesting. We'll continue to look at other aspects of our platform to continue, obviously, to enhance what we have, but also take some further steps around tissue and transplant and the ability to deliver very targeted solutions for specialty clinics that we think can afford more efficiency in processing patients and operational efficiency, which drive financial efficiencies and also have some very deep specific clinical content. So we're excited about a lot of things today, to be honest with you, and continue to the future and how we can impact healthcare.
Yeah, well, I think you are right about the genomics one. When I've compared against other approaches, you've definitely gone deeper than most. I wonder if that will be a point of differentiation going forward for many systems. It'll be interesting to watch. It is such an important aspect. Mm-hmm. Although I'm pretty struck by what you said as far as, the shift in mindset to becoming more of a platform for data, right? For people, and that you don't need to be all things to everyone now. I find it striking because I remember the interview I did at your 50th anniversary with your then CEO about it. And he talked about how Meditech in the early days developed your own phone system, right? Like literally, in the culture and the depth of culture of Meditech is build it ourselves. So is that a big culture change for Meditech to really embrace this? We don't need to be all things to everyone. We need to embrace some innovation from outside of those four walls.
I think it has been a culture change underway for a number of years. I recall the interview you did with him. We were developing tools sometimes before the tools existed.
Exactly.
Not really originally in the original way back DNA of Meditech. There wasn't an operating system that was specifically designed for the uniqueness of healthcare. Mm-hmm. That's something that our founder was a driving force behind. The email systems at the time were not commercially huge in business. We thought we could do one that would be efficient, driven for what we needed, and affordable. The stack of the operating system to the network protocols to the deep levels of database didn't exist originally when we were seeking to really make the record accessible and fast and easy to use. We designed them. So I think what you've seen is the evolution of a company that realizes what we're very good at, skilled at, want to define ourselves around, and also a company that appreciates the fact that we can move at times more quickly, more efficiently, and perhaps with a better result overall for healthcare and impact if we make the right choices in the right ways at the right time. So I think it is a cultural evolution. I don't think it was one we were ever totally opposed to. I think we just took that journey and realized that if we could deliver strong solutions at a time when healthcare did care about the price of those solutions, and we could do it more affordably than just piece parting commercial components that were being thrown out there by the bigger companies like DG or Digital at the time or Hewlett Packard, then we would be doing a service to healthcare and we would have a more competitive platform. And we did for a number of years. What shifted was the mindset in healthcare that people would eventually, rather shockingly to us, pay a whole lot more for traditional components of an EHR that had been out for decades, and that was okay, and that the money and the funding was there, and unquestioned. So the mindset of the industry shifted. But the things that we did for healthcare, I think we're quite proud of in terms of how ingenious they were, how creative they were, and how much they worked at a time when the market needed an affordable, reliable stack of technology and tools. How we operate the business is almost completely, obviously, outsourced now to commercial tools, and that's the right decision. From email to phone systems to customer support system, etc.
Yeah, I think no one would question that Meditech has been trying to do what's right for the for providers. I think that's I think everyone's seen that. So
Yeah,
yeah, what a beautiful response. Very interesting.
yeah.
How about interoperability? I mean, you touched on it a little bit with Tefka and those things. How would you describe Meditech's approach to interoperability, and what's kind of the long-term vision of what you're trying to do?
Yeah, so I would say interoperability is at the heart of our actual vision statement that we've announced to our staff and to the industry as a whole. But we want to advance the digital health record so that every patient and their providers can access their health information and participate in their care. We believe that every healthcare organization as a whole can better serve its community with open access to electronic health records, clinical knowledge, and data. And this is something that we have personally believed for a number of years. And I think the fact that our industry, to some degree, many would say, had to be shamed into this interoperability is not a proud moment for the industry. And sharing information amongst just Meditech to Meditech is not an interoperable record. Sharing information where it follows the patient and the provider needs is what we consider critical and what we're committing ourselves. So it's at the heart of what we're focused on. It's at the heart of what I referenced in terms of our evolution into being a platform. Our goal is to be a fully FHIR client, server, a FHIR, FHIR client, and server-enabled healthcare data platform, and have an open ecosystem where tools can provide for and facilitate a nationwide healthcare exchange of information, a data exchange. We're obviously already today compliant with Commonwealth. We'll be monitoring and participating and connecting to the many QHINs that will be elected in these next couple of years as a result of TEFCA. And we will be completely assessing how to streamline where our own products and workflows treat the data so it's most efficient for the clinician who needs access to the data, which is already well underway. So I'd say interoperability is at the heart of what we're doing, thinking, believing. And I'd also say that we have, as a result, relaunched our own Greenfield platform in two ways. One is to be sure that we have an open FHIR-based connectivity option for third-party vendors, and also that we have one to be able to create a sandbox and a playground for our own customers to be able to participate in their desires to develop application and services. So we've been busy on this topic for a while. It's a great question and one that we're firmly and very solidly committed to from a market point of view.
Yeah, I have an upcoming interview with Commonwealth and talking about this. So I'm excited to learn more about, because I think it impacts so many EHR vendors and in Tefka as well. So more to come on that.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, I thought, this may be an interesting question for you, but, it's interesting. Meditech, 53 years, right? Creates a lot of, has, created a lot of impact, right? And a lot of organizations, but of course, I think it also, there's a lot of people who don't understand Meditech, right? If they haven't been a user, they haven't whatever. So what do you think is the biggest misconception about Meditech that you hear that maybe you don't feel is fully fair for what you see in your experience?
Oof, this could be the most interesting question of the day, I think.
Yeah, we can talk for a while. Is that 53 years? There's a lot of misconceptions.
There are. And, truthfully, I think there's a lot of great things that people know about us. And I'm always so encouraged when I meet people that have either been our customer or many that actually have not, that have such a high regard for this company and what it's done to advance healthcare. And I often say that we are steeped in pride about the impact that we've had, that we took technology to communities that never otherwise would have seen them and advanced the care they could deliver, because across rural communities and community-based healthcare all across the Northeast, the Northern American hemisphere, and also to other parts of the world, which is impressive. I think people know us by the fact that we're a very credible partner that is truly partnered with the industry, a reliable company that stands by what it says, that oftentimes will undercommit and overdeliver. I think there's two things that people most often misunderstand about us. The first is that we are too frequently judged based on the legacy platform experience people have had. And that's both a blessing to our company and it's been a curse to our company. Most people do not know us yet. They will, but they don't yet, through the Expanse platform and the great depth of modernization and clinical and financial sophistication we put in this platform. The fact that we built the integrated ambulatory system from the ground up to really deliver a truly integrated system. And there's only two companies in this industry that have done that. Most others have, by virtue of acquisition, cobbled together electronic health records. But we have built it from the ground up and proudly so. So I wish that they would know us more from our modern web-based design. I think there's also a lot of new players in healthcare. I think we underestimate the fact that there's been a lot of change in the C-suite of healthcare, and they've come from manufacturing or other industries, and we have work to do to get that messaging out, that this is not a single EHR healthcare system, that there is diversity and choice. And in particular, I think we're proud of the fact that 3 and 4 years ago, people questioned the viability of Expanse in the company because there were bigger players here. There was Siemens, and there was McKesson, and there was GE, and there was Allscripts. And yet, I think what this market has shown is the size of the organization doesn't matter as much as the passion, the pride, and the strength of the offerings they bring. And that's something that we've been able to sustain. The other point I'll just make briefly is that people often will say it's a great system for smaller hospitals, which is such a misnomer. We have some of the biggest systems in the country. Steward Healthcare, Avera Healthcare. We have large organizations in Canada like all of Interior Health, Fraser Health, and the One. And most importantly, we have had a 30-year partnership with HCA. And HCA, who operates both other major two vendors that are EHR companies, has made a decision and elected to consider and move forward with Expanse as their go-forward platform. We could not be prouder of that decision. They had choice, they had experience with both the Cerner platform in multiple markets and the Epic platform. And their go-forward choice was with Meditech, I think, because of the platform itself and what it's going to do for them, because of the confidence and strength they have in this partnership, and because they see us as a company that's truly committed to the long-term successful impact of healthcare. They don't chase shiny objects, and they are an incredibly value-driven company. We're proud of that. Their facilities range anywhere from 50 beds to 900 beds, and we're automating each and every one of them. So I think the fact that people believe we're in smaller organizations is a misnomer that we really want to work hard to correct. And the fact of us having a platform that's been built in recent years and for the post-meaningful use era is something we're already correcting, I think, in the market space, but need to continue to do, and we're going to work hard to do. We're also only one of 2 vendors to see double-digit market share growth in 2021. One of 2 vendors to do that. And I think given all the question marks that were there several years ago, that speaks powerfully to the belief we always had in ourselves, to the loyalty and receptiveness we found in the market, and to the fact that we intend to just keep going and moving forward and moving upstream.
Yeah, it's fair to say that if HCA will implement it, then it can go as big as you want.
Work is never done that, right? We have learned some powerful lessons in the industry, I think. We're a company of great intention and of goodwill, working with customers in the market. We believe the progression of the next platform was the right thing to do for our customers. We had very smart and capable competitors who saw openings and took them in. And so our commitment to ourselves and to the industry is to continue to be vigilant around the retention of our customer base and the messaging that we're giving them, and also around the decisions that we make that allow us to make very strong, clear, and confident statements about what we're doing. And I think we're in a good place with all of that. As I said, I don't think you'll ever see a company here that doesn't resemble Meditech because of who we are and how we were founded and what we believe in. But I think that we've grown and we've learned, and we are now looking forward and not backwards to where we were, but actually taking advantage of where we are and all that we think we continue to do for this marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, I think the approach of Expanse is so fascinating because any programmer understands the principle of technical debt, and Meditech understands it great because every decade you decided to roll out a new platform to overcome the technical debts that we all know are a reality of software programming, right?
Right.
But I think 5 years ago you were still building Expanse and all the features that needed. Where do you see it? Obviously, I guess if HCA is going for it, these large systems are using Expanse. Is it ready for prime time? Does it have all those features? I mean, where do you see that? Right. I think that's a question many probably that don't follow it as closely as you are saying. Like, okay, is everything there now and ready for prime time?
Well, I would obviously argue that everything is not a stagnant concept because everything is constantly moving. So, the more we do, the more people desire, the more efficacy,
of course,
more that's something, and we all have to do something. So I would say that what I love most about this industry that fuels us every day after all these years is that our work is never done, right? It's a constant challenge to continue to move and to progress forward. I would say it is a woeful understatement that this industry perceives this EHR here and others here. That has absolutely been disproven as the case. I just mentioned HCA's really frontline comparison of that. Right. But I would also say that anecdotally from a lot of evaluations that we're in, do our competitors do some things well? Sure they do. Do we do some things really well? Absolutely we do. So that I think the market is in true capitalistic style, it's ready and wanting and looking for strong alternatives to just presumptions with regard to bigger versus smaller. I think this industry, with all of its workforce shortages, with reductions in reimbursement, with the challenges that are out there relative to patient volumes being down, with the challenges that are out there relative to the new models of employing physicians, people are looking for a strong value-driven solution. And I absolutely think that we deliver that to the market and we can compete with any other electronic health record in that regard. So I would say, yes, Expanse is fully baked. It's ready for prime time. We've been demonstrating that. We've actually been very busy in the terms of net new business I mentioned, in terms of that market share growth and competing and winning and replacing competitor systems, which is probably news to the market. But I think we've got a great story to tell, and we want to be able to do that loudly and proudly, professionally and well. And that's our goal as we move forward in 2022 and beyond.
Yeah. And to your point, one could argue that Expanse is better positioned for the future because it has been built in the last decade, right? On the latest technologies and the latest options, which isn't true for all the EHR vendors out there.
Sometimes having been doing this as long as I've been doing this, I remember Meditech being criticized for being a closed system, for having too much in its own stack. Then I remember Meditech being criticized for having too much legacy technology. And the point that you just made is so under discussed at times, that we have platforms that are literally at the core built maybe 20, 25, almost close to 30 years ago. And all of a sudden people don't discuss age anymore platforms. So we absolutely consider the fact that Expanse was built in the post-meaningful use era for the post-meaningful use era, and with true integration of that ambulatory workflow and all of the changes that have happened in healthcare. I mean, we have forced a brand new, somewhat care delivery model and reimbursement model into the market. How do you do that on technology that hasn't been redesigned and rebuilt architecturally and workflow-wise for the world we live in today? We had the courage to do that at a time when it was a challenge for sure. But we had the passion, I think, and commitment to realize we were going to come out very strongly back to the market with a true integrated ambulatory system. And we would be prepared for the future of healthcare and not necessarily still having that big hurdle to get over by taking our system forward. We've already done that, but most of the other electronic health record vendors have not done that.
Yeah. Well, Helen, this has been an enlightening discussion, giving us a lot of great view into Meditech and the evolution of Meditech over all these years. So thank you so much for taking the time to share, and appreciate you being willing to hop on camera with us. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com. Thanks, Helen.
Okay, John, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.